What is up, Ravens Flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome everyone to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin, here with my co-host James Haskell, and a friend and familiar face on the show, DraftPlex's own Jason Pruitt. Jason, thanks for joining us again tonight.
You bet, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and if those of you aren't familiar with Jason over at DraftPlex, he is the most accurate mock drafter in the country. I'll say it now. I'll say it tomorrow. I'll say it the day after that. And that's why we have Jason on, because this is an intriguing draft. And maybe the most intriguing position of all for the Ravens is, of course, the edge rush position, especially after old Zadarius Smith pulled a fast one on EDC there in Baltimore and decided to sign and play for a different purple team. So that's the position of focus for this video. And yeah, we're excited to get into it. So Jimbo, where should we start when talking edge in this draft?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jason, what I'd like to know off the jump is how you view this roster of edge rushers, right? Like, is it deep? Is it top heavy? How are you viewing this roster as a whole? And then let's talk about some players that, Glenn and I like that could be potential fits for the Ravens, because they're kind of an interesting spot. I feel like, based on, at being at 14, it's like, okay, are they going to be right after the run and going to have to move up, or are they going to be right in the middle of it? So talk about what the view on this entire roster as an edge rusher unit is.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty rich class. I think it's top heavy. I think it's deep. I think that there's going to be a little bit of a no man's land probably getting into the late first round, and then once you hit in the early second, it's going to start up again. I think the top handful of guys are going to go pretty quickly. So that's where you're looking at Aiden Hutchinson, who's potentially a number one pick. Trayvon Walker, I think, is overtaken to become the second edge based on the combine performance and just the projection of what he can be in the league. Of course, you got Kayvon Thibodeaux, who's, he's a little bit polarizing based on the skills and the ability versus the personality that the team may have to manage. I don't think that says anything about him as a player. I think he's a top talent in this class, but again, at the very top of the first round, you kind of want to have somebody that you're 100% sure about, and I think teams are still having to do some work on him. Jermaine Johnson, I have it right after that. Kind of a one-year production with Florida State, but really talented, and I think he'll be the next one to go after we the unfortunate injury to David Ajabo, who we probably want to get into at some point, because I know we talked about him last time as being a potential target of the Ravens there. And then once you get past that, I think you're looking at George Karlaftis, who's probably doesn't have the bend and the burst of some of these other guys, but definitely a nonstop motor guy who can play well against the run and get you some production off the edge as well. And then you get into some more of the projection types: Boye Mafe from Minnesota, Arnold Ebiketie of Penn State. These are guys that you'll probably have more of a designated pass rusher role before you can kind of evolve them into an every down player. And then I think once you get into that kind of second, third round range, there's a lot of guys that you can bring in. They'll be quality starters offhand, but they probably don't have the ceiling as everybody we've mentioned up to this point.
So what do you think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, then after that, you've got a lot of, interesting players, but I'm not sure if you'd call any one of them somebody that's going to come in and be a day one bookend edge opposite whoever it may be. You guys have to tell me a little bit more about who the Ravens
may be. You remember Odafe Oweh? I know you remember Odafe Oweh.
Yeah, we got Oweh, but on the opposite.
Well, the list
side,
ends there.
That's about it. Dalen Hayes, you remember Dalen Hayes out of Notre Dame last year?
I remember Dalen Hayes.
Didn't play a single game last year due to injury. We got him, and Tyus Bowser tore his Achilles in the last game of the season. Great.
Great timing.
Odafe Oweh is literally the entire list. So
yeah, I was worried about that. You guys are in a little bit of trouble there.
It's a problem. It's a problem. We could get Justin Houston out of the retirement home, pull him out of
again.
He's probably playing bridge in Florida somewhere, and we just call him up. Justin, it's like, let me put my oxygen down for a couple snaps here. No, we appreciate it, Justin. But my question is this: go into your crystal ball. Who are the guys that are gone previous to 14? And then as a follow-up to that, who are the 2 to 3 guys at 14 who you consider to be in play at that position? So the guys that will be already gone off the board, the Ravens shouldn't even dream about, and then the 2-3 guys you think that will be in play for them there.
Yeah, I think Hutchinson's gone. I think Walker's gone. 100%. Those two are probably top. They may be top 3. I think Hutchinson's almost kind of in that. He's now the favorite for number 1. Travon Walker, I've seen go as high as number 2 now. I think there's a lot of interest in him as well.
Man, these dudes are huge this year too.
6'7" for Aiden. Whoo.
Yeah, they're huge. They're fast. We're dealing with a whole new generation of athletes based on how the combine went, and just you see how these guys are built. I mean, they're built to be professionals, and they're 20 years old, right? I think Thibodeau's stock has slipped a little bit. I think he's still top 10. So, based on how things could go, I mean, there's still a possibility. Again, we talked about preference and flavors being kind of the story of this draft. There's not that, here's the top tier of a handful of prospects and then everybody else after that. It's wide open, I think, how this draft could go. But I think he's still gone within the first 10 picks. Jermaine Johnson has a possibility, depending on how the league views him. I think he's a top 10 player all the way, but, scouts and front offices are different, so he could be there at 14. I think after that, I think you have your pick. I think Ojabo was still going to be in that range regardless of the injury. I think he's pretty raw as it is. Kind of more of a designated pass rusher, probably for the first year. The injury complicates that, right? I think the upside is certainly still enticing to where he can go in the first round, but with an Achilles, you never know. I think, everybody's looking at the Achilles being the new ACL, where it's not a problem after Cam Akers came back in 6 months from that.
Yep.
But for a pass rusher whose explosion was all that he kind of had going for him, he's a speed rusher, right? You do have to have some concern with taking him maybe that early, but I wouldn't fault the Ravens for taking him at 14. But you just have to see how the board falls, and if you would hope that maybe you could trade back and get him if you still had your eye on it. You just kind of have to worry about that injury, just because it's going to heal up different. You don't never know if it heals up and he becomes the same player. It can still have the same ceiling, the same burst and the bend. You hope for that. You hope that he has a full recovery. He's back to 100% within the next year. But you'd kind of have to go from there.
Yeah, that's a tough break. I mean, on your pro day, go down like that with all those high hopes. Man, I tell you, I'd be a little disappointed to see the Ravens take him at 14, or even if they've trade back to 17 or 18, considering they need a guy. If you're going to take a guy at edge in the first round, he's got to be ready, week 1 to go out there and play a decent amount of snaps, both I think against the run and against the pass. So, man, might just not be in the cards this year for the Ravens and David Ojabo, but I'm sure he'll land somewhere and have his opportunity. Now, is there anyone that you look at that you say, yeah, he's going to be a top 10 guy, but he's so worth it for a team that's desperate for pass rush? Like we could put together some edge guys that could slow down a run attack. I think we got some guys there. But, man, we need some pass rush. So is there a guy that you say that you think might go top 10, but on the back end of that top 10, so like 8, 9, 10, that might be worth it for a team that's desperate for a pass rusher? Maybe the Ravens can jump up and go grab him?
Yeah, I think if you start to see Thibodeau slipping, I think if Jermaine Johnson is still there, and you're approaching pick 8, pick 9, because 8 and 9 is actually where the quarterbacks are kind of targeted to start going now, with Atlanta moving on from Matt Ryan. They signed Mariota, but you wonder if he's just maybe more of a bridge to whoever they may draft, if it's Malik Willis, if it's Matt Corral, you don't know. Seattle obviously got Drew Lock back from the Russell Wilson trade. Mm-hmm. They're supposedly high on him, but I wouldn't commit to that being the Seahawks QB of the future. They may be looking at one of the quarterbacks there. So there's a possibility you get to pick 10. One or both of those guys are still there, and it's probably worth that little bit of a jump to get either one of them, because I think they're the ones that are going to be impact players coming in. The rest of these guys are a little bit more unknown, once you get past probably Karlaftis. In Karlaftis, to me, I think that's a little bit of a reach at 14. He's probably better suited for the late teens and the early 20s. But again, he's a different kind of player. He's not going to give you, I don't think, the same kind of pass rush off the edge.
Perfect. So the Ravens will draft him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What you're saying?
Exactly. He'll
Well,
be
maybe
Jared
scaring me.
Johnson.
You're making me think of
maybe he
like
blows
Courtney
up.
Upshaw and like
yeah,
all these
Courtney
guys.
Upshaw. Oh man.
Gosh, man.
Well,
Yeah.
if I could ask you one other thing, is there someone you look at that's maybe in day 2 or even
Yeah.
day 3 that has the physical traits and is just so raw that if he figures it out, man, that guy could be special?
Yeah, wild card type guy.
There's a couple of guys. I think the first one you look at is Alex Wright, who is a giant edge from UAB. So you get into that Alabama kind of region that Ozzie used to love. I know he loves his Alabama guys, but he's like 6'7", like 260. He's very raw, but I mean you can see like as being an impact player because he does the work there. Another guy that I just studied this week, who's kind of been a forgotten man, again going back to Alabama, is Christopher Allen, who actually led Alabama in sacks 2020, but then he was hurt basically the whole year, and he's kind of just fallen off the map in terms of being a prospect. But I watched some of his tape. I was like, man, here's a guy that I would look at maybe in the 3rd round, provided all the medical stuff checks out, because he's really talented. But it's, again, you just have to worry about that. And, maybe Ozzie comes back on in a consultant role and tells you, hey,
he's been there.
This is what the picture is for this guy. Maybe let's look at him in 3rd, 4th round. But again, you take your gamble on that. Another player that's kind of been in that fringe area who comes with some baggage. I know you guys have some experience with like Tim Williams from way back in the day with, it's a little bit different with Sam Williams. There's a little bit more of allegations and charges and things like that.
Well, he's off the list then.
Yeah, you'd have to do the homework there. I think he was cleared, but that means different things based on how it goes. But and
what state you're in and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's somebody that's risen in kind of this off season. I can't say that I'm that high on him to where he's a 2nd round pick. I think of him more as a 3rd, 4th once you add everything together. But he would be somebody that probably is kind of on that fringe. The other ones you have are like smaller school guys like D'Angelo Malone, Western Kentucky, Dominique Robinson, Miami of Ohio, Amari Bono. If you remember, he was the very tall edge that ran like a 4.37 at the combine and kind of exploded out of that. So, there's again different kinds of flavors. Kingsley Enagbare would probably fit your stop the run, give you a little bit of pass rush. Maybe they're in the late 2nd, early 3rd.
It's a classic Ravens draft.
We'll get 2 of them then. We'll get 2 of them out of this draft.
Yeah, I think I look at him and I'm like, yeah, based on the history there, he might be that kind of selection. Again, you hope for the possibility of. Yeah, you hope for the possibility of him, but he could just be another, what'd you call him, sack daddy, Jalen.
Oh, man.
Jalen Smith. Why I say Jalen Smith, because I just had bad flashbacks.
Oh, Ferguson,
Cowboys,
yeah.
Jalen Ferguson from Louisiana Tech back in the day, who, I saw a good phrasing of how he made his turns in the 3-cone and, not that great at getting off the edge. Enagbare is a power player, play the run, and give you a little pass rush. But again, if you're looking for somebody to turn the corner, getting into the middle rounds, I think Christopher Allen's really interesting. I think Alex Wright in the top 100 is somebody you could draft and develop. But again, depends on what you're looking for. If you want somebody to come in day one, you got to hope that one of those top 4 starts getting to the back end of the top 10, and maybe you make a move.
Oh boy. I'm getting nervous here.
Why do we always get nervous when we have Jason on? I don't know what it is. He makes us nervous about this draft every time. But, this is that's another position where the Ravens are going to have to decide. Yeah. I don't remember going into a year where the Ravens had this many, like, where I can say, well, they could go edge at first pick. They could go center. Right. They could go tackle. There's so many different spots where I could make an argument why it makes sense for them to go that way. And
Yeah,
but Edge might
there's
be up there.
a lot riding on this draft.
Mhm.
A lot. So, yeah, I mean, what I would say, folks, for those of you that are watching, the names that Jason just mentioned that are going to be like the wild card later in the rounds, write those down. Jason has a
Mhm.
knack for being accurate, number one. But
Mhm.
number two, the Ravens also have a way of convincing all of us that guys we get in the 5th round and on are going to be incredible impact players. Every once in a while, they're right. A la Matthew Judon, I think Zadarius Smith,
Bozeman.
Yeah, Bradley Bozeman. So write the names down, guys. Just because it's not a day one guy doesn't mean it's not an end all. The sky is falling. I'm mostly saying that for myself. So I'm going to play this back like Michael Scott when Holly says that she's still engaged. Anyway, let us know what your guys' thoughts are. Any other names that we missed out there, and give us your best predictions, and we'll talk to you guys soon.